So Obi-Wan Kenobi is sitting in the passenger seat, and Luke Skywalker is driving, and he says, let's see some identification. And you're like, oh, crap. And Obi-Wan Kenobi says, these are not the droids you're looking for. He just said exactly what he wanted to happen. And I just think that's a great metaphor for what the modern music producer has the opportunity to do. You don't wait for permission anymore. It's such a freeing thing for the artistic spirit.
Welcome to Recording Studio Rockstars. I'm Lij Shaw, and this is the podcast created to help you become a rock star of the recording studio. Hey everybody, it's Lij Shaw. I'm your host of Recording Studio Rockstars, the podcast bringing you inside the recording studio. I created this show to introduce you to the real-world recording professionals so we can hear their stories and learn from their experiences, and you can take your recordings to the next level to become a rock star of the recording studio yourself. My guest on the show today is Mark Haffner, an Emmy Award-winning TV and film composer with many film, studio, and TV network credits. Some of Mark's clients include Disney, NBC, CBS, ABC, Orion Pictures, Atlantic Records, P. Diddy, Usher, Busta Rhymes, Notorious B.I.G. That's cool, dude. And many of the major market USA TV stations. Mark is a creative media production professional with over 25 years experience in television, film, and music, and advertising industries. He's passionate about helping entrepreneurs and businesses shape their personal and business brand with well-crafted storytelling and focused messages. He provides consulting and production services to clients, combining his unique blend of experience in copywriting, voice coaching, music consulting, and original production, video editing, show packaging, and promotional videos. Mark's also got a special freebie offer that he's going to tell us about at the end of the podcast just for listeners of Recording Studio Rockstars. So I'll just leave that for you as a teaser. Stay tuned to the end and he'll tell you more about that. Mark is also a business partner of mine and co-host of Podcast Professors, where we teach you how to get started in podcasting, which, of course, is a form of audio. If you are interested in podcasts yourself, or even the audio side of podcasting, you can check us out at podcastprofessors.com. Mark, welcome to Recording Studio Rockstars. Are you ready to rock, sir?
I am. Thank you for having me, Lij.
Dude, it's such a pleasure, man. And of course, we see each other regularly, but it's really cool to just have you here officially on Recording Studio Rockstars. I'm excited to talk to you about, your whole world and what you do in music and all the cool experiences you've had. So I did my best to introduce you. Can you tell us a little bit more about you and also tell us sort of how you got started in all this?
Well, when I, of course, we were talking about your show and coming out of the record industry and music industry in Nashville, which I also come from. I'm a Belmont University graduate, which is right there on Music Row. The thing that I was hearing in my description, it was very business. I write music.
Yeah.
I do. I write music, and all of that business stuff sounds good. And yes, it is important that you use your music for something that people will pay for. And I guess maybe that's what's helpful to understand in a nutshell how I've shaped my career, because I did come from the love of music. Just real quickly, I went to school in Texas for 2 years to study jazz at North Texas State University, piano and saxophone. Dropped the saxophone. There were guys that were playing sight reading eighth notes at 320 beats per minute on the metronome. They were like mutants, and you're like, okay, I quit. I'm not going to be a player ever. And then I went to Nashville because in high school, I had a rock band that won a contest on a rock radio station that got on some vinyl. There was a ballot in the record, which we got voted the favorite band, and we got offered a little record deal, and we all went to college. So, but to this day, all of us are working musicians or in the music industry, either players or teachers or. It's really wonderful because it was that moment, I would say, And I know you're going to ask this later, but it was that moment that actually made us all know that we could do this. We could be in the music business.
You know, it's funny. You talk about starting out and having an opportunity with your band to record to vinyl. And I remember my music professor in high school, he had this same description about how his band, they actually had a mobile recording truck that came to the high school, and they just ran microphones into the gym and recorded straight to disc for them.
Now that's hardcore. We didn't do that. No, that was really cool. That would have been cool.
What I was going to say too is that, even in college, we won a music contest and we got to record to some vinyl. And I would say, I'm going to venture a guess here, that some of our listeners, kids today, also are, because of the resurgence in vinyl, are getting a chance to record and press vinyl. But there's probably a whole generation in the middle there that just didn't see vinyl at all, probably never put anything on vinyl. Just an interesting side note.
We were all going through all those technology changes and fascinated by all those lights, and but the real grooves in the vinyl, I think, stuck to all of us, when we were young, and those of us who lived through that era. And others who even heard about that area, whether they actually knew what it was like, they knew that there was something different about that. I was one of the first people to get into MIDI.
Yeah.
Nobody, people were scared to death of it, and there were cables everywhere, and
I'm still scared to death.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, and we'll talk about music production in just a second. I have actually something very important to say about MIDI. Man, it's just you gotta start from inside your heart and soul, and then all the rest of it falls into the right places.
Yeah. All right. So you went to school. You realized that being a performer wasn't really your thing, and then that led you to Belmont. Were you studying recording music at Belmont?
I did. I started in I was attracted to their program because they had a multi-track. Because, see, I started in the multi-track when I was 15, took one of those little, at the recording studio kind of programs where I learned more about multi-track. They had a 2-inch 16 3M machine, and I can't remember what kind of console it was, but it was a decent console. I mean, this is a legit studio in Paducah, Kentucky, Audio Creations. Shout out to George Cumby. I think he's still there. I hope he hears this. If he does, thank you, George, for a whole lifetime of recording a career. I really do actually hope that actually brings a little tear to think if George might hear this.
That's cool.
Anyway, yeah. So that was and let me just tell that story real quick. There was a record that we heard on vinyl of another rock band, and the contest came about, and we listened to this other band, and they recorded in Paducah, Kentucky, which is where Audio Creations is. And we loved the sound of the record. He said, this is a great record. So we saved our money and we practiced in our basement, and we went down to the studio with like $200. And I think he was $65 an hour or something, maybe. I don't remember. It was like we had 3 hours of time. We did 2 songs, overdubs, mix, everything, and a little funny thing we did with Van Halen, Happy Trails. We sang the a cappella.
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah. And so then that was our session, 3 hours, and that was all the money we had. And that was that was the whole experience. We went in, we were prepared. We knew that we were going to be doing overdubs and backgrounds. We were prepared before we went. That was really cool. So after having that experience and going to North Texas and studying music, going to Belmont, I needed multi-track. I mean, it's just multi-track was already under I needed it back.
Yeah.
And so when I saw that Belmont had multi-track and I could still continue college, I'm like, okay, I'll go there. And I could transfer credits in music and still go maybe explore commercial music or music business, which actually I finished a music business degree, ironically. So I have a business degree of all things.
Cool. That's a good thing to have.
It sort of is. But I mean, our business is still your ears, man. You know that. I mean,
Well, I know, but I mean, it's sort of typical in the music industry that you're going to be an entrepreneur and you're going to be self-employed. So having some understanding of the business aspect,
well, that's why I thought it was
crucial.
Yeah, that's why I thought it was a smart thing to do. You go to school to learn the things you don't know. If you've got music in your heart and soul, let me tell you, there's very few things that people can't be taught, but that's hard to teach. If you can't feel that music and heart and soul thing, it's hard to teach that. You know what I mean? You can teach technique, you can teach all kinds of other things, but business, yeah, I figured I might as well go ahead and get a business degree. So I have a music business degree from Belmont, and it's never met me a job or anything, but did it educate me? I had some wonderful experiences there. There were some, I do have stories about, classes that were very valuable to me in moments. I remember the teacher, Malcolm Mims, who teaches there in the law degree. And I was producing a little teenage artist who had come up from Florida when her dad was paying for an apartment for her to be a little Britney Spears back in the days of Madonna. And we were producing tracks on her. At the time, I was taking Malcolm's class. And I mean, if I had to miss his class, I actually got sick to my stomach because I didn't want to miss it because the stuff he was saying was so absolutely pertinent to the contracts that I was doing with the music artists I was working with at the time. I was like, this was like, $500 an hour with an entertainment attorney. And he's representing. Malcolm had worked with. He represented ZZ Top and Barbara Mandrell.
Well, it's cool when you have those opportunities to work with a real mentor, somebody who's experienced, like, hey, we're getting to talk to you right now, it's
thank
a cool
you, Liz.
opportunity.
And you know what's cool is that actually I'm in Florida and you're in Nashville right now. And I love that I feel so at home in this conversation because this is my peeps, you're my peeps. And I came into the Florida where I'm at now to raise kids and have a family life and that sort of thing. But my industry is still in my blood in such a way that I've got to, you know what I mean? You're like, ugh.
Yeah. Well, right on, man. Well, hey, so I'm going to jump in with some questions for you and see where we go from there. So one of the questions I really like to ask and want to ask you is, do you maybe have an inspirational quote you could share with us that's, might help inspire people on their journey into music and recording music?
I'm going to just talk a little philosophy for a second and a quote. I have a quote. The quote is not a music quote right away because I've been in a sort of a film-minded mode for sound and music. And I might even ask your listeners to think this way because this is a very cool and very helpful thing to do right now where we are in October 2015 and probably will continue for quite some time in the music industry, is that some of the easiest places to put music is in film and television licensing. Like if you're either not in the music business or you want to get in the music business, getting a record cut is really a tough. You really do need to move to Nashville. You need to move to Los Angeles. You need to be in Miami. You've got to be. When you say Liz, it's really not that easy. But unless you're touring with a band and that sort of thing. But you can imagine. Hey, what are these places? I can license things in of my music in places to people where they want to buy it. So here's the I think the quote that I was going to say was from Star Wars.
Nice.
And
what are you going to say? Luke, I am your father.
Yeah, no, it's not that one.
Sorry, that was Arnold Schwarzenegger. I messed that up.
Yeah, I want to hear that again. You did a good job. No, the quote I was thinking was, these are not the droids you're looking for.
Right, okay.
These are not the droids you're looking for. And the reason why I mentioned this is because, we in the music business have had our money move around a lot. You know what I mean? The music industry's income of how it makes money.
Sure.
And so you got to be willing to move your shells. And that's a really hard thing to understand sometimes. But, Lidge, I think, you and what I'm doing and what's going on right now is a very exciting thing and time for artists and musicians to not just always be looking where they were looking before.
Yeah, right.
And imagine exactly what it is that they want to happen. And that's what that quote means. They're stopped at the city line. They've got to get to the spaceship to get to outer space.
Yeah.
And the stormtroopers have stopped them. And the droids are in the buggy, and they're caught. They're going to go to jail. They're going to get dragged into they don't want to be stopped. So Obi-Wan Kenobi is sitting in the passenger seat and Luke Skywalker is driving and he says, let's see some identification, and you're like, oh crap. And Obi-Wan Kenobi says, these are not the droids you're looking for.
He did some mind melding powers.
He just said exactly what he wanted to happen. And I just think that's a great metaphor for what podcasting and, the modern music producer has the opportunity to do. You don't wait for permission anymore. You've heard me say this before.
Yeah.
But I think it's such a magnificently, democratically freeing thing for the artistic spirit.
Dude, that's awesome, man. I love how you just brought Star Wars into this and then spun it right around into a great inspirational quote. That's perfect.
Music is my heart and soul. I mean, don't get me wrong. I bring music into television and film. That's what I started. I came from the music business. I love songwriting. I want to do more. By the way, if anybody wants to write songs with me, call me.
Nice. But
I want to write songs, but
it's so key. I mean, whether you're recording music, trying to start a recording studio, writing your own songs and recording them, they all have these obstacles of like, I really want to do this, but I just can't because of this or that or the other thing. Or I don't see myself as a songwriter. I don't feel like I can say it yet because really I'm delivering pizzas for a living. And you got a great point, which is no, just say you're a songwriter. These are not the droids you're looking for. I'm a songwriter. Right. Well, so groovy, man. So tell us about, something. That was a great quote, by the way. Thank you for that. Tell us about an important failure or setback that was part of your journey, turned out to be a learning lesson for you, on your musical recording journey or your musical journey.
Well, the upside downside of my journey for me is that I did have success at a very young age. I was very fortunate to go right into the music industry. I mean, from being a young person in college to going into the music industry and becoming a professional producer and, basically composer, that ultimately I was doing stuff for television. I was doing stuff with publishers and all kinds of jingles and advertising when I was in Nashville. Oh, do you know what? For Nashville trivia, I did the jingle for Opryland.
Oh, for the amusement park?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have an old vintage Opryland flag here in the studio that just sits on the wall.
That's pretty cool. Actually, I think it's actually on my YouTube channel, and it's like a little 30-second. So I can send it to you. You can share it.
Yeah, let's put a link to that in the show notes so that people can check it out.
And then just for future note, you can also know, because I have the Ladio cast, I can do stuff during a show. I can if you want to play music. So.
Right, totally. Well, so let's see. So that's did we get to your moment of failure or setback yet? We didn't get there, right?
We didn't.
All right, keep going. Sorry.
I want to mention the Opryland thing because I never have told you that. The excitement of doing music in multiple genres as a composer was so attractive to me that I thought, I don't want to be a rocker dude in a band that's playing the same music for 10 years or country or whatever the style of music is. That for some reason was not what I wanted. I wanted to go into doing a much broader scope of styles of production and writing. So when I saw the opportunity to go into television, I said, this is perfect. I can write all kinds of stuff. And I did. And it was really, from a production, music, just basic music experience, exactly what I was looking for. I got to work with orchestras. I recorded with the Seattle Symphony. I got to do, all of this, a lot of the big session groups that are in Nashville, and celebrity players showing up on my sessions that I had no idea who they were, even celebrities, because there was just good stuff going on. But it was for television, and eventually I realized why I was getting paid so well. And that was because I wasn't really putting out my own message. I was putting out the message of my client. Mm-hmm. And my client was a television company, and their basic need was to raise their ratings. Mm-hmm. And so I'm the shiny, stuff that you say, hey, we're wonderful. I'm a jingle for the TV station, or whatever, or some news theme that maybe made the TV station look like it was part of the community in a good way. They were always trying to be positive and stuff, but at the same time, what the news is,
Sure.
and I got to be a part of it in a way where I was writing news music packages for stations. I was probably one of 4 or 5 people in the country that were doing it at one particular time that was big at doing it, because I had a lot of big market stations, and it was just starting to become where I was getting the call for that. Mm-hmm. And
so what was the failure or the setback in this?
I really lost myself. I really lost myself because when you start I'm just saying from a musical standpoint, anybody who might be listening to this, if you're a writer of, say, dance music or country music or rock music, you make your dedication. I grew up on rock and roll. I grew up on rock music. I grew up in classical and rock and records like that, classic 70s, 80s stuff. And but then it got into this do everything, and then once you do everything, and you know this about me, Lidge, because you know me pretty well. It's just that then it makes it a little bit less what it is, the one thing that you want to really commit yourself to, and that for me is what I'm doing right now. This is what the Mark Haffner Show is really all about. Is that finding of myself, just like someone would do, actually.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm actually trying to talk to entertainment industry professionals to do that, because everybody, I say everybody, but a lot of people in the entertainment industry, work professionally, and they do lots of great stuff, and then they get down the road and they go, why did I do this?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where I'm at. And I find that, there's benefits to, going and doing all this stuff for building up your skills to be in all of these different things. But then, your heart and soul, it's like suffers a little bit. So I'm bringing that back into focus right now. And it's the exciting time because of that. But that, to me, is what I had to repair. You know what I'm saying about me?
Yeah. So it basically, if you're a songwriter, for example, it's that process of finding your voice. It's allowing yourself that freedom to discover what it is that you want to write and what you want to say, and create the music that feels like it's genuinely you.
And then ultimately you become known for it, and that's when everybody calls you up and has you do it, and it makes it a lot easier. Whereas a composer like me is like, what do you do? Well, I do absolutely everything,
right.
And you know that about me. I do absolutely everything, and it's sort of a plague. So I would say in some way that is a little bit of a failure, but I certainly am happy that I focused on being, a music composer as opposed to a lot of other things.
Sure. Well, what about, so can you share with us, I'm imagining that maybe that there was sort of a light at the end of the tunnel, and that led to some moments of success and, where you just felt like things really came together. Can you share any moments of success stories, on your path?
Some success stories.
Or even, just pick one moment that you remember where you really felt like it came together. Maybe it was a moment where you found that voice and you felt like you were able to do something that was genuine to yourself.
I'm interested as a writer. I'm always interested. I'm a producer and an engineer. Right? I understand the roles of being a producer and an engineer, also being very separate. I've actually played both in either or roles, or both at the same time, sort of thing. But I really love to write, and I am a songwriter. And I still, when I think about my dream of dreams, I still think that that's probably the one I'm really thinking I love the most. Writing in general. But as far as an experience, I dabble in songwriting and in film writing. But the most important thing, I think, is that when you actually make a connection with your writing with the listener, and you've actually helped them change. And I think that happened with me when I was 15. I was like I said, this was an amazing thing. The song was called "A Dream in the Making." And I wrote about my rock band making it big in the rock and roll business. I mean, it wasn't like brain surgery, but it was just our dream, and it got on this record, and people heard it, and other people thought, yeah, I want to make it big someday too. And it became this sort of generic dream, not just for a rock band. The rock band was just the metaphor. And I didn't realize this. So then people started coming up to me and saying, how did you know what I was thinking? And I go, I didn't know how you were thinking. I thought, I knew what I was thinking. And they're like telling me, but that's what I was thinking. And I said, that's really, it just touches you when you feel something that somebody comes and says, I feel that too. And that happened through the radio. I'm just saying that at 15 happened to me with a song that I wrote. And I don't think that'll ever leave me.
That's cool. And that's one of those experiences where when it's sort of what I hear as a description of a hit song a lot of times too, is finding a topic that resonates with so many people, something that's so basic, that's true to yourself, but other people hear it and they think, wow, he's totally speaking to me.
Yeah, I mean, I have stories in my profession. I see that's like my pre-professional life, but I do go back to that because that's kind of where I'm 15 again right now. And I'm going back to that time when I wrote those songs and was really passionate about really sharing my belief that people's possibilities are infinite, That was what the songs were. The other song was a rock song called Sky's the Limit.
Nice. Well, so that's very cool. I mean, I think there are listeners that may be in the same boat as you, or a similar experience. They're recording and writing music now that is a form of revisiting, an inspirational experience that they might have had initially in music. I feel that way all the time. I'm always sort of getting re-excited about music that reminds me of what it was like the first time to start making music.
It can be a new one too, but I think those passions that ignited things are important to remember. Yeah. And I think that for me, I sat in sort of a meditation of for a while when I was working in my studio in Florida, because I did have hours alone. They were not so full of sessions players, coming in and out. I actually had my session players in Nashville and LA via high-speed modem. So they weren't in the room with me. I wasn't able to do what we can do right now over Skype, but I was still, pretty much alone and in a quiet space. And it gave me a lot of meditative time to really, search what were those moments? What were the musical moments that you just tickle yourself and you go, gosh, I love that.
Yeah.
What is it? And it could change. It could be something new, but your first ones are always special.
Well, that's cool, man. Well, so tell us something that you're just excited about right now. Sort of sounds like you're rediscovering that.
Well, yeah, I am on the verge of some sort of discovery. People discovering me, probably. I haven't been very visible. I've been very reclusive and working with clients that were my proprietary, historic clients in television for many, many years, and studio clients who came in to make some records. I've had, clients come in the studio, make records with me.
Well, certainly your work was very visible.
Well, thank you. That's what I'm saying. But I myself was working remotely sometimes from Florida, and that didn't seem to matter. So. But now it's so fun with the podcasting and the social media and video and Lidge. We have had a chance to meet each other, but we don't get a chance really to see each other, But yet we spend time together all the time, and I'm finding that that's an easy thing to do with the peer group that I'm going to be choosing, and it's fantastic. So I am coming kind of out of the box. I'm starting the Mark Haffner Show podcast, and we'll have the markhaffnershow.com, and you'll be able to subscribe either on iTunes. I've got to figure it all out, and your subscribers can check out that name, though. That will be the name of the show. Okay,
cool. And tell us, so if our listeners are interested in music recording, what is going to be in your show? Like, why should they come check it out? What's going to be about?
My show is ultimately, you got to understand, I am a professional, and I want to help people make money, and I want people to enjoy themselves while they do it, and I do. And I don't think that just my personal opinion, I don't think that music has to be a hobby. I think you can make money doing it, and you can have a great time. So I want people to know that. Now, my area of doing that is television and film, but it's still music. It's still your rock band. It's still a song license. It's still your band. It's just that you didn't sell or license your song to Atlantic Records. You licensed it to Paramount or a producer for a film, and then you earn royalties, and that can be substantial over the years if you get into a decent show. In fact, I'll even tell you this one thing, this shocks a lot of people. It's not uncommon for producers who have an excellent opportunity for music royalty income to ask you to license your song for free or for very cheap. But people will do it because the back end size of royalties is so massive that it's a no-brainer. But beginners don't really know that, and they haven't had that sort of success. So that's what I would say. Look for those opportunities where somebody really has a great big distribution of a great big project. They're spending millions of dollars to market. But if you could get your song licensed into it, you don't have to have a record deal.
That's cool. That's great. Well, I look forward to hearing it, and I know our listeners will be interested in checking that out too. So, hey, before we get into our final stretch here of the jam session, I wanted to give you a chance. I was telling our listeners that you had a special offer you wanted to talk about, and so I turn it over to you. Would you like to talk about what your special deal is?
I have realized that I have a passion for people and for creativity and artists, music artists, entertainers, performers, voice talent, actors, writers. I work with directors and producers. And as well as all of the elements of the recording studio people, the arrangers, and all of these people that are the creatives. I love all of you guys, And I want to be hanging out with more, this crowd of folks in my business. So I encourage you to contact me regarding, how what I'm doing can help you in your creative work for a consultation initially for 30 minutes over Skype, preferably, because I can do audio things and video things over Skype, and we can share things that way for a limited time. I mean, but this is a very important time to catch a wave, I would say, in the next, 3 to 6 months, because something really wonderful is happening. We've got podcasts that are being developed. I'm actually pointing podcast marketing at the entertainment industry. So that's what I can help entertainment people to do, is kind of develop their own personal brand online, to go out there and sell their own movies, sell their own records, network in the entertainment industry, that sort of thing.
That's cool. And you've recently, I know you described having some fantastic success over Skype, coaching people in things as unexpected as voiceover, doing voiceover work, things like that.
Yeah, let me describe that. This is really, really cool. Yeah, you know what? In the business of television, there's sort of a routine, just like multi-track recording, right? You got to lay down the bass drum and the kicks and the basic tracks, and then you do the overdubs, and then you know what I mean? This is the way you make music. But the process is normally to hire a voiceover talent to read a script, to do a promotional advertisement, or to have a script for a voiceover read. But the cool thing that's really neat about podcasters is that they're their own champion, and they're out there with their own show, and they're kind of promoting themselves. And if you heard a voiceover person doing that, it would be like, why is somebody else doing that? It just doesn't make sense. You really want to hear the person do it. So what I've been doing is I've been getting on Skype calls with some of my clients that want to produce promotional material for themselves. And I record them and coach them doing the voiceover. And it makes them the voiceover talent. And I help them to do the best read that they can do performance-wise. And then I record it over Skype on my machine because the audio is plenty good for voiceover.
That's awesome.
So it is fun. It is a lot of fun. And I love working with people and seeing the smiles on their faces through Skype, that they are like, wow, that does sound better. Oh, wow. They're proud of themselves because they're able to do it.
That's cool. Well, so that's a really amazingly generous offer. Let's pause for a moment and then we'll jump into the jam session. Hey everybody, it's Lid Shaw, and I want to thank you so much for listening to this episode of Recording Studio Rockstars. I really appreciate you, and I really appreciate your time. And as a way of saying thank you, I've created a special mix tutorial just for you, Rockstars, totally free, called the Mixmaster Bundle. With it, you get over 2 hours of detailed videos watching over my shoulder as I mix a song in my studio. Plus, I give you the free eBook that explains how I recorded the tracks. And you get downloadable multi-tracks so that you can practice your mixes, including the Pro Tools session file, using nothing but stock plugins in Pro Tools, all of which you would find in any other DAW, whether you're on Logic or Studio One or Reaper. Maybe you're struggling with trying to improve your mix technique, or maybe you just simply don't have access to multi-track files or can't record a full drum set in your studio. I wanted to give you a chance to create your own mixes from full drum kit, bass, and guitars recorded in my studio. The song is called American Winter, and it's off my instrumental record Skadoosh, and it's all available for you totally free right now. All you need to do to get it is text Mixmaster Bundle to 33444, and I'll send it directly to your email. Again, that's Mixmaster Bundle with no space to 33444, or you can go directly to mixmasterbundle.com, enter your email, and I'll send all the files directly to you. Thanks so much, Rockstars. We'll see you guys in the jam session. Cheers. So, Mark, welcome back. Let's jump into the jam session. It's a series of questions, and you can just give us your thoughts.
Okay.
So tell us, what was something at the beginning, getting started in music and recording, that was holding you back?
The honest truth, it really is that I had a fair amount of musical talent at a young age. I had a good ear, and I could pick things out by ear, and I could play things, and people were blown away from an early age. And it was not hard for me to amaze people with music.
Nice.
But at the same time, it made me very lazy. And I got to high school, and there were guys that had practiced their ass off. Mm-hmm. And they were great and they were awesome. And I'm sitting there going fumbling around on my saxophone, and they're like smoking me. And I realized, I've got to practice. And so I would say, yes, there you go. Practice. So that's a pretty good musician thing to learn how to do, because practice, I'll tell you this, musicians go, God, this is like a composer like me. A composer like me is interested in how you put the pieces of the puzzle together. That's what a composer does. Mm-hmm. The composer says, let's rearrange the pieces. Let's take the different chords, different melodies, different parts, different timbres, whatever, all of these things. How do they mix up into a different kind of soup? And that's the sort of fun challenge of a lifetime that a composer enjoys doing. However, performance is part of music, and the performance side requires practice in a way. Not that writing doesn't require practice too, but the performance side needs to be automated in your body, and you can't get it any other way than practice.
Yeah,
practice is the only way that you can do it, and you have to do something repetitively so that eventually your mind is disconnected from your nervous system and your body is just taken over.
It's interesting to me that you actually throw a twist in there. So the thing that was holding you back initially was being sort of talented, I describe that as big brother syndrome in my life, because my younger brother by 2 years, is also a musician, and he's an incredibly accomplished jazz pianist. And when we were kids, I sort of had this natural knack for picking up some things and playing this, playing that. And because I was 2 years older, I always had a little bit of a head start. Well, same thing. I found myself kind of leaning on those skills and being a little lazy sometimes about practicing. Next thing you know, my brother just like comes along and he just practices.
Okay, I got that one too. Okay, my little sister, she didn't go into the music business. She went in the film business. And I was the oldest of 4 kids. And yes, I had the sort of limelight because I was the oldest and I'd been given the first, there's a sort of an order of birth, you know what I mean? It's like if you're the first, you get a lot of attention because there's no other competition. And then the second kid comes along, the third kid, and that sort of thing. And my sister, she became the engineer for my band. She actually is like this little cute cheerleader captain who was in the back running the console when we were in the club.
Nice.
And she was running she was the engineer. She was that kind of tenacious person, like, oh yeah, I can be cool like my brother. I'm going to run the console. And so she was like running the console. And then she got into art, and she eventually got to Los Angeles. And her first film was as a production assistant on The Addams Family.
Oh wow! Well, that was a great movie too.
And well, the story on that is, I'll just tell the story real quickly because we're mentioning Yale is my sister. She passed away at 32 of a brain aneurysm, but she was in the film industry, made a lot of big films. The Addams Family was not supposed to be as big as it was. And so she got on the crew. And what happens in Hollywood is that once a big film goes like the Addams Family did, they freeze the crew and they say, don't change anybody.
Right.
And then they go to do Robin Williams toys. And then they go and they do The Fan with Robert De Niro. And then they go do The American President with Annette Bening and Michael Douglas. And so it's blockbuster. Or George of the Jungle they did. I mean, it's just unbelievable, all these films that she did. But
well, that's it. Yeah. Oh, that's cool. That's a cool story because, that applies to making.
I'm just saying she was one-upping me. She really was. I got to tell you, when the story is done and told, she was one-upping me like, hey, you know what? I'm going to do movies bigger than yours, sort of thing.
Well, I was just going to draw an analogy back to us, to our listeners, where, when you're making records, you're in the studio, you're working with people, you're playing in a band with people. When you find a group of people and it works, there's a lot of value in that loyalty of just saying, let's stick with this team. You find somebody who can mix your record great, or somebody who can master for you. And it's like, or the guy to do video, whatever it is.
I can't believe I haven't told that story because this is perfect for your listeners. This is a true story. My band formed in my basement and was junior high school guys, guitar players, more guitar players than anybody, coming in and out and playing and jamming for years and years in teen centers and all kinds of things until finally we were kind of forming something. And the contest did help form, actually. We were at the kind of verge of forming anyway, but that really helped us bring our original songs in, which was great. And it was I will say, is the most magical time of my life, probably. 15 years old in a band of guys, and we all saw music the same way. And we could all imagine the same record, and we all worked together. And it was magic. And then after that, our guitarist, Don Carr, who now works with Sweetwater Sound, was a lead guitarist for my band. He played with the Oak Ridge Boys for 20-something years as their lead guitarist. And he, can I say this right now? Don, talking about Don. He pursued a career, I think, with other bands for many years after that of his own, and ended up touring with the Oaks, because it was a great way to make a living, and he had a great time playing guitar, and he loved playing guitar. But I think he wanted to make some sort of band of his own, kind of like what we had in high school. And me, of course, I didn't really pursue the band formation way of pursuing music, but although I was making songs all the time, but I didn't have a band. He was always really wanting to do that and never could, I don't think. I mean, Don, you tell me, how you felt about that. But I really think that what we did at that time was a miracle. And it's like, when I look back on it, I mean, because a lifetime has happened since then. And it's like, how did that happen? How did all of us, and how did all of us come into a band and actually play together and see everything eye to eye? And we imagined the same record and we saw the same vision.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
There's something about those first band experiences. It's like first loves with girlfriends. You just find people so effortlessly to play music with and create with. And sometimes it's hard to recreate that. But it can be done by, dang it.
I want to believe that it can, and it's just
pushing.
So, and you have to believe that it does happen, and I can tell you that it does.
Yeah. Well, all right. Well, so let's jump on to some more questions here for the jam session. Can you share with us like a recording tip, hack, or secret sauce from your own experience? Something you'd like to share with everybody?
I got to go on a long-term one here. This is not a lately one. Work backwards from the talent you have available.
Okay.
If it's your talent, either a singer's talent, your drummer's talent, your guitar player's talent, whoever's talent, record them first. Don't tell them what to do. Record them first, because then you'll hear what they're good at. They won't even know.
Interesting.
And you'll play back the recording, and you'll hear those guys. You'll say, "My gosh, Lidge, when you do that little thing," you go, "What thing?"
Right.
And I will listen to, what I'm talking about. And so, and so instead of saying, okay, we're going to structure everything and we're going to force it all in, and then we're going in the studio and we're going to know what we're going to do. We're going to do it just like this. It's great to be organized. You should understand what a multi-track recording studio is all about and how it works. You have to. But, and so if you don't know, you'd better know. I mean, I'm assuming that your listeners know.
Yeah, well, but let me pause for a sec, because I think that's a great tip, and one that I have not heard suggested before, the work backwards idea. Start with your biggest strength in whatever your situation is, and then build it back from there. And I would say my analogy to that is when I'm doing live recordings, which I do a lot of live to 2-track in studio recordings, and there are things that limit what can happen. And a lot of times, if you put a vocal mic in a room with a bunch of other instruments, you need to make sure the vocal is full. And that can be the thing that limits what you can get away with the other instruments, for example. So, if you start with that thing that's like the vocal is the strong point, you got to make sure you have a great recording on your vocal. And then you just sort of figure out, all right, well, now if we put drums in there, are the drums too loud on the vocal mic? Okay, let's move them back. Let's play quieter.
And there's synergy. There's synergy between the engineering technique and the intention of the writing too. When they synergize, you know what I'm saying? Like the lyrics and.
Well, so you were mentioning films a moment ago. That leads me to the next question, which is, do you have a favorite book or a film, something about music and making records that you might like to share with everybody?
The book is Rebel Without a Crew. It's written by Robert Rodriguez, who is a filmmaker. Renegade guerrilla filmmaker who became famous. Great story. The book is basically a journal, and is the journal of how he made a movie with $7,000. And he talks about being a father and a family man at the same time. And eventually the story ends happily many years after the book was written, that he is a huge filmmaker, having made stuff with Quentin Tarantino, and he's worked with Steven Spielberg. And I don't have his films in front of me right now, but he did Spy Kids. That was his first big thing. And then he did, and he has so much fun, and he's all about the family. I kind of connect that with Nashville sometimes because Nashville's such a great family town. But anyway, Robert Rodriguez, that book, it's called Rebel Without a Crew. It's about how to make a movie with $7,000. And it really did kind of spark the revolution of people making their own movies. But, these days, I hope people make their own podcasts.
I love it, man. And I bet these days when you start a movie, you can probably even start with less than 7,000 and get something going.
For movies these days, $7,000 can make you the Spielberg stuff anymore.
Yeah. Well, so all right. So next question is, how about sharing a favorite hardware tool for the studio? Whether anything from a tuner to a mic, favorite piece of gear.
Your microphone. There are a million microphones out there. And when you first start out, you're going to buy a really good microphone for probably $200 that was made in China.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be really pretty good. And that's what it's going to get you. But don't stay there. Don't stay there. Buy a really good microphone. Buy the best microphone. Sell your used car and buy a really good Neumann, a really good tube mic, something. Get a good microphone.
Yeah.
If you're serious about recording and you don't have but a little $200 microphone, you know what? $200 microphones are amazing these days.
Well, now,
but you're also going to sound like everybody else.
What's the microphone that you're using right now for this Skype chat?
This Skype is sort of a podcasting design microphone that actually is the same one you're using, I think. The Mic Tech Procast SST, which is designed for podcasting. And the way that it's designed helps it get the mic closer to you for speaking, which, of course, anybody who knows recording technique is one of the most important things. So that's why I use the Mic Tech Procast SST. It has the radio arm on it, and I can get it right in front of my mouth to talk in a podcast. Now, the microphone I use to record with, I have always used a Neumann U89.
Oh, cool. I knew you had a Neumann there, so I was hoping you mentioned it.
It's my baby, and you did note that it needs a little tender loving care, but it's been in my family for a long time, and I do love it, and it is a wonderful microphone. It is a real microphone, as you know, and your people should know.
Awesome.
And I would say with the one piece of equipment, yes, please, one day save your money, get a good mic.
Great tip. All right, so next one, can you share a favorite recording software tool? Something, whether it's a plugin or a DAW.
The plugins, I will tell you, this is secret weapon stuff, I think, is the CLA plugins. I do think that they're very, very quick and easy. I hate to tell even people this because they actually kind of work on their own almost. They sound so good. I think they do. The thing that they do is they add all of the elements you need. Because when you're a recording engineer, you've got to understand the whole signal flow, and you do have different things in the chain. And so, with the CLA type of plugins, and they're so inexpensive, it puts all of the pieces in the chain together. They do sort of a behind the scenes tweaking. Don't think that you're doing all of the work. It's being done behind the scenes, and it's being done expertly. So I would say, point the pistol and pull the trigger. A CLA plugin makes things sound
That's
good.
awesome. I like that suggestion. I use them myself. And just to clarify for our listeners, you're talking about the Waves plugins, the Chris Lord-Alge signature series, right?
Absolutely. And the probably say the first one I would say to get would be the vocal. And then other ones are great too. But I would say those plugins are really nice.
Yeah, the vocal is really cool. I actually use that regularly for podcast voices. It just brings the voice forward. I'm not using the effects that are built in. I'm not using the stereoizer or the reverb or anything.
I would say that the main thing they're good for, and why it's really like amazing kind of how and what they do is that it gets everything kind of in the zone quickly. It's hard to know how to adjust a compressor and an EQ and the preamp and the levels and which microphone and the positioning and all this stuff. And so you're going to do some of it right and you're going to do some of it wrong. But you do sort of tweak it when you mix.
Yeah.
And there are things you do almost all the time because that there's like typical hum when the bottom of the snare drum or whatever the problem is, you know what I mean? And you do it all the time because you're going to be able to fix it. And that's what that thing kind of goes zip. And it handles a lot of issues.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable.
It is pretty remarkable.
Well, okay, so here we're going to jump into the last and final question. This one's pretty exciting, and you may have answered part of it already for sure, but it's this. Mark, if you were dropped into a strange city and you could only take a simple setup for recording, what would you choose? How would you find people to record? And how would you make ends meet so that you could continue recording and stay on this path?
Well, I'll tell you this, man, and you can tell this already by talking to me. It's all about the energy. Wherever you go into a club and you meet some music people, wherever you can find them. And I am really a fan. I have right now, when you talk about equipment, I have a Zoom H6. It's not the best preamp situation for music recording, but man, I've got a 6-track recorder in my pocket. It has 2 stereo mics that sound pretty decent, and I can walk in and just meet a band and plug into their board and start recording a multi-track. So, I mean, I don't know. I like the idea of being able to bring high fidelity into the mobile world. And so, yeah, I would make some recordings. I would make some videos. Actually, I'm big on videos because of social media. So what I usually do is I combine video production with the audio recording, which of course has got to be amazing. And most people who are video producers don't care about audio. So I'm an audio guy. And so you do a great multi-track or a great recording, and then you do a little bit of video, and people look cool, and then they find more, then you take a piece of the action.
Right. So now you mentioned the Zoom H6 recorder. It's a portable recorder.
Oh yeah.
That has microphones built into it. And but you're not using that to edit your video. What would you need if you wanted to be able to do multi-track and also edit your video?
I'm an old digital performer guy. I've been using digital performer since 1.0. In fact, it was Performer, and I used to synchronize through MIDI time code with Pro Tools 4-track. And so I'm old school, and I've always been using that. I love Pro Tools. I've always loved Pro Tools. I'm not even really a Pro Tools user right now. I'm not really needing to spend the licensing fees they charge, but I still am a fan of their platform, and I do love the platform of Pro Tools. And I've had many big blown out systems of Pro Tools. And if you are serious about it, I would almost say the only real serious system is it's not the only serious system, but you better know it. But I'm working independently, mostly on songwriting and content and producing independently. And digital performer is wonderful for me.
For the music side. Now, what about the video side?
On the video side, right now I'm using the Adobe Creative Suite Online, which has a monthly service charge, which is kind of interesting because it does connect all of the things like Photoshop and After Effects and all these different things that you need to create really exciting video. I would say those are the 3 programs. If your listeners have never done video production, Premiere, Adobe Premiere, Photoshop, and After Effects, those 3 programs are included in the Adobe Creative Suite Online. You can check it out on their website at adobe.com, and you can subscribe to that, and you get all of this for a monthly fee. And it's for somebody who wants to create media, you're using the tools that the big boys use if you use this. Now, the other tool to use that a lot of people use is a Final Cut Pro. I used to use it all the time, and then they changed it and so forth. So anyway, the state of the art is somewhat with the big movies is Final Cut Pro. But I would say if I was to recommend to anybody out there, go grab a month, trial or subscription to the Adobe Creative Suite and try out Adobe Premiere for video. Adobe Photoshop is the photos and graphics you're going to need to understand, and then Adobe After Effects does animation, and there's lots of cheap templates you can find online. So you can learn how to do this stuff without being just being adequately techie.
Awesome, man. Well, Mark, it's time to say goodbye to our rock stars. But before we go, I want to thank you so much for being here on the show. And I want to ask you, how can our listeners find you and learn more about you?
You can reach me, if you want to reach me, at mark@markhaffner.com.
Right on. And if they want to follow you on any social media, do you have any particular handles you like to use?
On Twitter, I have at MHPROD.
Okay, groovy. And again, thank you. And also thank you for your super generous offer of the free 30-minute consultation for our listeners so that they can check in with you and work on consultation to better their brand for their business, video, music, and podcasting, as you described it. So I think that's a great opportunity. Anybody who wants to work on, what if they're songwriting? Can they contact you about songwriting?
Yeah, well, there's a couple things we're talking about here because I am a marketing person. I help people market themselves. I build personal brands. I am also a songwriter, so I would love for people to contact me if you're interested in doing some songwriting. I do music tracks, but I also do lyric writing, and I'm interested in doing more songwriting these days.
Very cool. And so a great and easy way for you to get connected is just go directly to the show notes, and I'll make sure to include a link to connect you with Mark.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Well, again, thanks so much, Mark. really a pleasure hanging out with you, and I can't wait to see you again. I know I'll see you shortly over on Podcast Professors. In the meantime, thanks for joining our rock stars at Recording Studio Rockstars.
Thank you so much for having me, Lidge.
All right, dude. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for listening to Recording Studio Rockstars. If you enjoyed the show and want to help make it better, please leave a rating and review on iTunes to help reach more people. You can click directly over to iTunes or go to recordingstudiorockstars.com/review for an easy explanation. And if you want more free content, all you have to do is text RS Rockstars to 33444. Again, that's RS Rockstars to 33444, and I'll keep you in the loop with articles, videos, and podcast updates. And I'll let you know about any upcoming giveaway offers, all totally free. Thanks for listening. I'm Lidge Shaw, and this is Recording Studio Rockstars. Now, go make great music.